A group from Massachusetts, GLAAD, which is Gay and Lesbian Advocates and Defenders, have sued the Federal Personnel Department, that's not the right name, but because of unequal treatment on behalf of, I think it's 8 couples and 3 widowers. And one of those widowers was married in Massachusetts to Representative Jerry Studs, who was an openly gay member of Congress. And so when Jerry died, this man was denied his pension, any survivor benefits. The government basically treated him as if he was a roommate, which meant there was no legal standing between the two of them at all.
Right.
So there's a lot of room for improvement on the federal level, but the first step, this is the step, is getting married here, and it just kind of erases that sense of having to come out every time you fill out a form. You can just say, when you talk about your marital status, you say, I'm married, instead of having to find the extra box that says civil union or other,
Right.
So and as soon as you say civil union, they know you're queer.
So what, I guess it's probably, I don't know, a 20-year battle, but is there a game plan, or would you have an idea of how to, is it basically move state to state until there's a critical mass in that federal?
That's above my pay grade.
Yeah.
I really don't know what the national strategy is, and I'm just happy we got it here. And I'm happy also to hear that in New Hampshire and Maine, their legislators are moving forward,
right.
And that's terrific.
It just passed the New Hampshire Senate yesterday, and the Maine Senate just today.
Yeah.
So things look good for a northern New England. You could travel from the Atlantic Ocean to Lake Champlain.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
We were talking a
Plus
little.
Connecticut.
Oh, that's right. You could go south, and Massachusetts is there.
Yep.
Vermont being, we still have the sort of historic claim that we're the first legislature to pass gay marriage without a judicial mandate. So that's
right.
We could still get some bragging rights there. Even we can share the wealth, but just let that be known. And then Iowa's gay marriage showing up in the middle of our process was just really helpful and timely, and also telling the country that this is not some funny little New England outlier.
Rebellious, Vermont going its own way.
The heart of the heartland.
Yes.
Being on board was really, really nicely timed.
I think so. But. And in actually, in an odd way, I think that Governor Douglas's veto in the middle of the process.
Or
actually,
announcing that he would.
Yes. Yeah. Veto announcement, I should have said. Actually helped us in a way, because I think people were not just voters, but legislators were offended that he had, without precedent, stepped into the middle after the Senate passed the bill and announced that he was going to veto the bill. He's never done that before.
Yeah.
And we usually have to wait till the bill is passed through the legislature and then find out whether he's going to veto it or not.
Right.
And he didn't do that this time, and I think it actually helped us, because people understood that this was something extraordinary, and we needed to do it right.
Do you care to speculate on why he inserted himself in the middle of the legislative process like that?
I've seen a lot of speculation, and I don't know. I wouldn't presume to speak for Governor Douglas, but some speculation has to do with that he's building credentials for some later job, either with a Republican think tank or for a national office.
Okay.
And some speculation is simply that the whole issue makes him uncomfortable and he wants it to go away as quickly as possible. And that's a more personal take on it. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
He kept calling it a distraction.
Yes.
Which, I don't know.
Well, this is a guy who's never had a job in the real world. He's only ever worked in the government. And, he grew up in Middlebury, I believe, and went to Middlebury College. And certainly he's done more traveling since he became governor. but he's led a rather sheltered life.
Okay, and also sort of in some way pitting our economic difficulties against this issue that it would somehow take away from. But boy, if it passes easily in 2 chambers, it's not much of a distraction. That was a pretty quick ratification of civil rights.
Yeah, it was pretty quick, and also there are economic arguments to make. You know, that a study out of the Williams Institute at UCLA suggested that if Vermont passed marriage equality, you know, our economy could benefit, you know, something like, I think it was $33 million of economic activity, or $36 million, resulting in 3.3
We
million.
already have like a summer marriage economy.
Exactly.
If you go to Stowe or something,
exactly.
it's there.
And that could generate, you know, $3 million in tax revenue.
Right.
So, you know, and that's, a lot of that is rooms and meals.
Right. Let's be a welcoming place.
Absolutely.
That's yeah.
So there's an economic argument, and also that activity could produce between 600 and 700 jobs, you know, and that's nothing to sneeze at either, especially since the governor's busy slashing employees off the state payroll in the middle of a recession, and while on the other hand accepting stimulus money that is supposed to save state government jobs.
Right. When we were talking earlier about sort of how the state versus the federal law works, it reminded me of a little conversation we were having about sort of the conservative argument for gay marriage. Steve Schmidt was McCain's campaign manager, and he came out in favor of gay marriage, saying the Republican Party is in danger of seriously marginalizing itself as this sort of religious party off to the side.
Right.
And it's interesting to think of as this is almost, at this point it's like a states' rights issue until DOMA moves, which is going to be quite a while. There are other sort of conservative arguments for gay marriage.
I will cite the editorial written by Emerson Lynn for the St. Albans Messenger. Now, the Messenger is a pretty conservative paper. It was the Lynns bought it, I believe, from Bill Loeb of the Manchester Union Leader fame.
Okay.
He used to own that paper.
Right.
So I have a very pleasant, you know, conversational relationship with Emerson Lynn, and so when I sent him a congratulations message for his editorial endorsing the marriage bill, he said, "So why are you surprised?" And I wrote back and I said, you know, that he'd been so quiet on the issue for a long time. But his basic argument was that conservatives should embrace same-sex marriage because it's a stabilizing force in society. If the right-wing mantra is that the nuclear family is the core of our democracy and our society, then getting more folks involved in a nuclear family and extending that definition a bit is only going to be better for our economy and our culture and not, you know, and no bad things will happen.
Right.
And, you know, plus the idea that extending marriage rights to me are not going to take away marriage rights from him.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So that was easy.
Yeah. If the family's the building block of society, how could you deny a set of people access to that?
Exactly.
And then I've also heard this kind of it's almost, I guess it's a religious freedom argument. That how can you have the government define if there's a church that is perfectly fine with
such as the Episcopal Church, for example.
Right.
A friend of mine is an Episcopal priest. Actually, I have a couple of friends who are Episcopal priests, and she made that argument in her testimony at the Joint Judiciary hearing. Is that right now? You know, before the bill passed, she was forced to treat her gay and lesbian parishioners and her straight parishioners, both of whom wanted to marry, differently. You know, either the state should get out of marriage entirely, and everyone should get a civil union, or that the same marriage rights should be available to anyone who wants them, and in any church that is willing to perform them.